Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to continue with our lecture series on fundamentals of Theravada. Last week we discussed about the Uttujja-rūpas that are found in inanimate bodies and how could they be categorized or named according to the generation. Now today's lecture is about the Uttujja-rūpas which constitute the bodies of living beings, Saviññānaka Uttujja-rūpa. In Saviññānaka Uttujja-rūpas, the bodies of living beings are mainly in general all the physical bodies that we experience in the human world, including the animals, are mainly made out of Uttujja-rūpas. That is the co-essence of animate and inanimate bodies, both animate and inanimate bodies. Even in the inanimate bodies, even though there are Kammaja-rūpas present, the real co-essence, the main essence of the living being, the body, is constituted with Uttujja-rūpas. The best argument we bring from the Theravada perspective is there are 4 types of rūpas within someone's body, and out of them Kammaja, Chittaja and Aharaja disappears immediately after the death. But then the Uttujja-rūpa still continues to remain. Therefore, now when we observe a human's body or a person who is dead, a dead body, we don't see much difference. We don't see a huge difference in a general, when we generally look at it from the body which was living. Therefore, we come into the conclusion based on the Theravada fundamentals that the main constitution part of the living being's body is made out of Uttujja-rūpas. Then how these Uttujja-rūpas came into the body and how this body is constructed based on Uttujja-rūpas is something that we should learn. When you are studying Visuddhimagga, based on the information given based on fundamentals, we don't see a place where these main core Uttujja-rūpas come into this body, or how the body is developing based on those Uttujja-rūpas. Then, so in this lecture, we are emphasizing, or we are investigating, trying to find out how this human body is made from the very beginning, and then how it is developed. Uttujja-rūpas which constitute the bodies of living beings, Saviññānaka Uttujja-rūpas, the majority and primary types of matter in living organism are Uttujja-rūpas. Majority and the primary types of matter, right? Then all living beings, a living body is made up of 4 types of matter: Kammaja, Chittaja, Uttujja and Aharaja. Among these, Kammaja, Chittaja and Aharaja rūpas do not exist in a dead body. Only Uttujja-rūpas remain. However, no clear change in the quantity of matter can be observed between a living and a dead body. Therefore, it should be understood that the major portion of the core of a living body, primary foundation of a living body, is Uttujja-rūpas. So that's the biggest argument that we bring. Then, functional wise there are differences. Obviously, biologically speaking, a living body is functioning while the dead body is not. But when you think about the constitution, like the ingredients which make this living body, Uttujja-rūpas are prominent and primary. There are 4 main sources of Uttujja-rūpas in a living body. So, a co-essence of a living. Now sometimes when the weather conditions change, some changes do occur in our bodies, but those are not going to last for a longer period. Those changes, they fluctuate according to the situation of the environment. But there are some essence of the body that would remain in a very sort of a equilibrium state throughout our entire life, because we know as beings who have a stable temperature, sort of a stable temperature within a certain range, our bodies we don't go drastic changes immediately. even within the temperature. If it fluctuates more than the exact, like the healthy range, the beings would die. Therefore, unlike in some animals such as frogs and so forth, whose body temperature would fluctuate together with the outer environment, our bodies do not show such changes. So anyway, now that would be we have a innate inside temperature that makes us living, and that gets affected by certain conditions, especially sicknesses and so forth, but still they remain in a certain specific range. And then if you talk about the main essence of the body, we can observe that they remain the same for a longer period, and changes occur gradually over the time. Now, so what are these? We are talking about this main essence, our flesh, bones, and also so forth. What are they made out of? That is the main topic that we are going to discuss at the moment. Now, there are four major sources of Utthaja Rūpas in a living body. First is from the father. Father's sperm adds things into our body. That is common to every person who is born out of a mother's womb. Then Rūpas contributed by the mother's ovum or egg cells from the mother. Biologically speaking, our body is made out of these two cells coming to half cells, we would say. They are not complete. They are not a complete cell, and when they come together and when they are combined, they become a cell, and that cell starts to grow. So that would act as the surface of our living body. The initial two parts that are connected, the sperm and the egg, gets connected, and that would act as the basis for the entire life. So those Rūpas, and also during the embryonic stage, some Rūpas do, it's assumed that they get into our body, and that's why our body has similar traits to that of our fathers and ancestors. Then even at the moment of conception, as explained in the Paramattha Dīpani, some Utthaja Rūpas are added. But when speaking biologically, we can see when the two cells get together and make one cell, and this would act as the basis of our life. So it can be assumed that Kammaja Rūpas are appearing on this surface. Kammaja Rūpas are appearing on this. So there's no special evidences to exactly say that's what is happening according to the tradition, but Kammaja Rūpas are appearing. So according to our tradition, they are appearing, newly arising. So when these Rūpas are newly arising, they should associate a certain surface, and that surface seems to be the cell that is newly now constructed by the combination of a egg and a sperm. Now then the third type of source is Rūpas added to the fetus while it resides in the womb, arising from the food consumed by the mother. This was explained by the Buddha in the Yakka Sangyutta, in Sangyutta Nikaya. The child lives depending on the food eaten by the mother. Now, when the food is eaten by the mother, it can produce effects to the child's body, and it can even, when that food goes into the child's fetus, it can produce Aharaja Rūpas and so forth. And those Rūpas are adding to the child's body, and it starts to grow. Then the Rūpas added to the body after birth through the food consumed during life. Now, food eaten by the mother, during the womb stage, embryonic stage, while in the womb, and then the food eaten after we have come out of the wound. These are the four major sources of Utthaja Rūpas. Because now these all, now for example, the parts of the father's body, parts of the mother's body, she got them or he got them, both of them got them through their parents and from the food they have consumed. Now, we'll first focus on these two aspects, especially the last one, the food we eat. Now, when we eat food, those food get digested and small particles would be spread all around the body, and those particles undergo changes gradually and they transform into the body parts. That's what is happening. Now, in real essence, we are what we eat. Our bodies grow from the matter that we take into our body through consumption of the food. Then those food particles, or to say the mass in the food, transforms into the mass of the body. That's what is happening. Even scientifically, that's what is happening. All the our hair and everything grows with the energy and the matter that is accumulated within the body through the consumption of food. Now, then what we have to understand is our main part of our body is not something arising within ourselves. Unlike Kammaja-rūpas are not coming from anywhere. They are arising newly in the body or as the body, whatever you say. Then, whatever way you say. So, Chittaja-rūpas are arising within the body, newly arising, produced by the consciousness. Aharaja-rūpas are arising due to the food that we consume. They are newly arising and energizing the body. But when it comes to Uttūja-rūpas, yes, Uttūja-rūpas are also newly arising from the food or the particles that are which constitute the body. But the real contributor to the mass of the body is the food that we consume. So what is happening is, it's not that the food that is consumed is producing now Kammaja-rūpas, when they come to the Kammaja-rūpas KR, when they come to the Titi stage, they produce new Uttūja-rūpas, and those Uttūja-rūpas, Tejo Dhatu of those Uttūja-rūpas would produce another Uttūja-rūpa. So likewise, this continues, this lineage continues for 10 to 12 generations, and that would not last any further. The main contributing Uttūja-rūpas of the human body or a living body are not acting in a similar way. No. What happens is, the food that we consume, Kabalikara Ahara, contains Uttūja-rūpas. It contains Uttūja-rūpas. And these Uttūja-rūpas, they exist in lineages. One produces another Kalapa before it passes away, and that Kalapa produces another Kalapa before it passes away. So likewise, this continues in a generation. So this generation would continue, because Kammaja-rūpas generation, for instance, while the Kammaja-rūpas are arising one after another means like they are also arising at every sub-mind moment, new Uttūja-rūpa generations would start. Parallel generations would start. Now, those generations are out of the Kammaja Kalapa sect. They are out of the Kammaja. So they are arising newly arising. And those newly arising Uttūja-rūpas from the Karmaja Kalapas, they don't last much longer, and they would get terminated, or they would end up after 10 to 12 generations. But when it comes to the food that we consume, what is happening is, now even while the food is outside, generation is taking place. It's not that it would not double, the same amount of Rūpa is continuing to happen. Whenever they pass away, new Rūpas arise, the generation continues, and what happens is, this generation comes into a change, slightly changes. For example, when the a container of food gets rot, the same generation continues with a modified state or an altered state. So they have come into entered into a different state due to certain factors. In the same way, with the food that we consume keeps on existing in generations, and when they undergo all the systematic influence of the body, digestive system influence, what happens is, those food undergoes great change, and finally they become cell particles or body parts in the end. That's what is happening. So this food that is consumed becomes hair particles. It doesn't mean, it is not a transformation of the same kalapas into a different kalapas. What is happening is, now kalapas do exist in generation, rising and falling, rising and falling. In a certain level they were called the food, and then at a later stage they will be called hair, HAIR. Now there is an intermediate stage where the change is happening. So the same generation continuing, the food generation becomes hair, and then later on this becomes soil. If it is burnt, it becomes ash or evaporates to the air, and then finally if it becomes soil, that soil will become tree parts of the trees, and then they act as food and again becomes hair or any other body part, suitable body part. So likewise the Utthajarupa lineage continues. It never ends. It never ends. These Utthajarupa lineages in the world never ends. Now scientifically speaking, according to the Big Bang theory, we are made out of particles that were remnant out of burnt or destroyed stars and so forth, and the things that have come out of stars and so forth. So because those rupas are circulating here and there, and we are made out of them, all the basic components of the living organism, and everything is made out of the basic elements such as hydrogen, helium and so forth. In the same way, according to Theravada teachings, the same Rupa Kalapas that are existing in the universe have gone transformations, and eventually they become bodies and so forth. That's the and it's influenced by the karma while it is becoming living bodies, right? So yeah, we shall read the paragraph 469. During the embryonic stage, a group of Utthajarupas is transferred from the bodies of the parents to the fetus. Some rupas are transferred from the parents' bodies to the fetus. These rupas are referred in Paramattha Dipani as Yoni Rupa or Yoni Niyama. The word given to these rupas from the mother and from the father are called Yoni Rupa. Yoni Rupa, right? So this refers to the mode of birth. Yoni refers to the mode of birth. Because of this Yoni Rupa, similarities can be seen in the DNA of the cells found in the bodies of children and their parents. As a result, children tend to exhibit physical features that resemble their parents and ancestors. This inheritance of rupas from parents explains why members of the same species or lineage display similar physical characteristics, which should be understood under the principle of Yoni Niyama. Yoni Niyama is, there is a Gammata, Dhammata or a phenomenon governing this system of features of the parents would eventually go into the living beings of the offspring, and that can be explained materially saying that by saying some matter gets into the fetus from the parents' bodies, and those rupas would influence all the other rupas that are accumulated later. For instance, those basic rupas that we contain will be influencing all the Utthajarupas that are newly coming into the body through our food consumption. So they will act as the specific blueprint or the blueprint of the entire body that had come from the parents' body. And furthermore, due to the influence of Utthajarupas inherited from the parents' bodies, all rupas constitutes, beginning from the Patisandhi Rupa, all rupa constitutes beginning from the Patisandhi Rupa are structured in a manner resembling the rupas of the parents or ancestors. There are two things now going on. Now at the moment of conception, some rupas are added from the mother's and the father's body, and then this keeps on growing. You say these are the rupa from the mother and rupa from the father. Now these rupas are spread all around the body, and also when new rupas are connecting to the body through food consumption and from the food eaten by the mother, and that they would take the major portion of the body, and they will also be influenced from the moment of patisandhi by these rupas, influenced by these rupas. So even the newly arising rupas, when they become parts of the body, are influenced by those basic rupas that came into our body from the parents. So I think it is even scientifically that makes sense, because the DNA that we possess is completely governing the growth of our body and the nature of our body. Even though the majority of the mass is accumulated through food consumption, those matter that would constitute our body is modified or sort of influenced by the affected by the DNA present in our body. In the same way, the rupas, as explained in the Theravada teachings, rupas that got into our body from the parents' bodies are influencing the entire structure till the death. The rupas added to the body through food consumption refer to the transformation of the utuj rupas present in the consumed food and liquids into the utuj kalapas that constitute the body. So that's a transformation going on, as we said. Now, food particles were eaten, and these food particles, they keep on happening in generations. Okay, I can use a different color, for instance. Now, after it's digested, they go into a different type. Type means different nature, and then at a certain stage through the process, they become body parts, for instance. Now, from this level, in the previously, at this stage it was called food, and for instance, this level we call it meat, right? Flesh, right? Flesh. Now, the same lineage undergoing transformation. New rupas are arising over the course, but overall speaking, the body of those rupas, the collection of those rupas manifests different features. And for instance, what we are saying is rice becomes flesh in our body, rice becomes hair of our body. So that's what is happening in the end. According to the Theravada doctrine, the transformation of the subtle, I'll read the paragraph again, 471. The rupas added to the body through food consumption refer to the transformation of the utuj rupas present in the consumed food and liquids into the utuja rupa kalapas that constitute the body. The food that is consumed is digested, and the subtle particles it contains are transported via the bloodstream to various parts of the body. These utuj rupas are then transformed into bodily components such as hair, body hair, flesh, blood, skin, and so forth. And normally in Ayurvedic systems, we normally say if you eat certain type of food, the blood generation of blood, production of blood increases. And all this to happen, there has to be some, because given the theory of energy, mass, we call it the energy remains constant. In the same way, the mass too remains constant. Only a slight change can happen due to the change of matter into energy. Normally, the mass also remains constant of mass, constant of energy, and constant of mass. So in the same, therefore, for new blood arising means new rupas have turned into blood. That's what is happening. Then, according to Theravada doctrine, the transformation of the subtle material particles found in consumed food into bodily components is not merely a change in the structural arrangement of atoms as described in physical science. So what happens is, now when a certain food becomes a body part, there's a lot of structural change going on. The interrelations change. It's not that according to physical science, an electron would disappear, electron would vanish and a new electron appears. No. They would say electron can be found in different locations and possibilities are there, but they are found at one location at one time, but the possibility is always there that they may be here and there. according to quantum physics, but they don't accept the idea that an electron would eventually completely vanish and appear in a different place. One can still keep on arguing on that. I think scientific theories do not appreciate or support such an idea. So what is happening is the same electrode that happened even at the Big Bang theory, a moment of Big Bang, are still existing in the universe according to them. And these subtle particles, subatomic particles, they become atoms, and those atoms make elements, and elements are made into compounds. So likewise, the structure of the universe is existing. Now, when the food is becoming parts of the body, there's a structural change going on. It's not that the atoms have disappeared and new atoms have arisen. The structure of the basic fundamental structure changes when they go through this transformation. Now, this is not what the Theravadians are saying. We are not talking about merely a change in the structural arrangement of the atoms as described in physical science. In Theravada, it is taught that the generated Rūpa Kalapa ceases after 17 mind moments. Each and every Kalapa disappears after 17 mind moments, after they have arisen. That's a fundamental theory. Now, during this duration, the Tejo Dhatu present in that Rūpa Kalapas gives rise to a new Utuja Rūpa. In this way, a continuous lineage of Rūpas is maintained. So likewise, new Rūpas are now. This new Rūpa has arisen while this Rūpa was present actually. The Utuja Kalapas, now it arose and passed away. The second generation arises while during its Sthiti stage. And the third generation arises while it is still. So even while the first Rūpa is still present, the third Rūpa has arisen. Now then at a certain stage, when the first Rūpa would cease, and then according to the commentaries, at the 52nd Rūpa would start arising. So likewise, the lineage maintains in this kind of a sequence. Now, chittas arise after the previous chitta has passed away. They come one after another. They arise in one after another in a sequence. But in the Rūpa's case, the new Rūpa is arising while the previous Rūpa is still existing, but still the generation is maintained. So new Rūpas are happening while the old Rūpas are passing away. That's the theory here. So what happens is, as a result, now during this duration, Tejo Dhatu present in the Rūpa Kalapas gives rise to a new Utuja Rūpa. In this way, continuous lineage of Utuja Rūpas is maintained. Therefore, in Theravada teaching, the transformation of consumed food into bodily components is not merely a rearrangement of existing material particles. It's not that the same material particles have rearranged and continue to exist. Rather, it refers to the arising of new Utuja Kalapas due to the fire element present in the Utuja Kalapas of the food. These newly arisen Kalapas differ somewhat from the original ones. They differ from the original ones. Now, these Kalapas, the food Kalapas and the flesh Kalapas are slightly different, right? Slightly different. These newly arisen Kalapas differ somewhat from the original ones, primarily in the altered configuration of their interrelation. In my opinion, the Kalapas, two Kalapas, would not be greatly different from each other given the nature of the subatomic particles. Then what happens is the interrelationship, as in science even, when they are restructured, yes, changes do occur. When compounds are connected differently, they manifest different liquid and gas attributes, solid attributes. And in the same way, in Theravada teachings, yes, when this configuration happens, the different configuration and different interrelationships between the Kalapas are going on. Yes, it manifests different features to the outerwards. Then what happens is, now in that regard, it's similar to what the science is saying. But the difference is, scientifically speaking, the same Rūpas that have rearranged as flesh, the same Rūpas which were in the food got rearranged as flesh. But in this case, the lineage, during the lineage, new Rūpas are happening, and those new Rūpas have come into a different configuration, or they start to have different interrelationships. That's the difference in physical science and Theravada in this regard. Otherwise, the mechanism seems to be the same, but in science we don't say the electrons or the subatomic particles completely vanish and new things are coming into existence. No, that's not accepted in science. They have something called virtual particles, which do not last. They don't represent the core essence of our bodies. They are just arising and vanishing. But in the core essence particles, they remain as they are. They can undergo changes. A certain subatomic particle may change into another subatomic particle, but doesn't mean that they cease to exist and newly arise, as explained in Theravada teaching. So these two places are, in my knowledge, are contradicting science and Theravada. But anyway, in this case, according to Theravada teachings, new rupas are arising, and those new rupas possess certain different attributes, slightly different attributes, and especially their interrelationship becomes greatly different, and then they manifest as different objects to us, right? So these newly arisen kalapas differ somewhat from the original ones, primarily in their altered configuration of their interrelations. As a result, the interclusteral structure of the four great elements changes. Eventually, they appear in the form of bodily components. The interclusteral relationships they had between kalapas have changed when it comes to the body parts. So what happens? Maybe the food was a liquid, and the manifestation at the end, the product would be a solid body part. These things are possible. The Utuja Rupas that arise from the four primary sources mentioned earlier are referred to as the first generation of Utuja Kalapas. So that's what we discussed last time. Now, how do we term them? How do we define them? If I refer to the same handout which I explained before last time, Utuja Rupas are the Rupas that arise due to Tejo Dhatu. Then Utu Samuttana are the matters of which the Tejo Dhatu is the cause of origin. That means matter produced by Tejo Dhatu. Then in essence, Utuja Rupas and Utu Samuttan Rupas are identical. Utuja Rupas and Utu Samuttana are identical. Then we have Utupachya Rupas, Utupachya Rupas affected by Tejo Dhatu, Utupachya Utu Samuttana. Utu Samuttana. That means if Utuja Rupa or Utu Samuttana, when affected by Utu Tejo Dhatu, and so this is also produced by Tejo Dhatu in a Kalapa. Now this Rupa, Kalapa, produces a new Rupa, that's the Utupachya Utu Samuttana, right? That's what we discussed last time. Now speaking about the animate bodies, Utuja Rupas that arise from the four primary sources mentioned earlier are referred to as the first generation of Utuja Kalapas, because now our body gets these Rupas from the mother, father, food eaten by the mother while we were in the womb, and food eaten by us ourselves. We have the four primary sources. So the Utuja Rupas that are gathering or constituting as the body or gathering into the body or accumulated into the body should be considered as the first Utuja Kalapas. So they are the Utuja Rupas. These Utuja Rupas, supported specially by Kamaj Rupas, in particular the Jivitindriya Rupa, produce new Utuja Rupas. They produce new Utuja Rupas. These Utuja Rupas produce new Utuja Rupas. Utuja. And they should be called Utu Samuttana. They should be called Utu Samuttana. So This second generation is referred to as Samuttana. For the sake Samuttana, for the sake of simplicity in study, both these generations of Rupas are referred to collectively as Samuttana. We can call these are Utuja Rupas, and they also can be called, because they are identical, Samuttana. These are also called Samuttana. They can also be called Utuja. This is the first generation, this is second generation. Right? Second generation. The Chatusammuttanika Rupas present in a living organism are affected by both external and internal heat. Therefore, all Chatusammuttanika Rupas found in a living body are also designated as Utupachya Rupas. This includes the previously mentioned Utusammuttana Rupas as well. Now, what happens is, now we go to a new page. We take, these are the first Utuja Rupas, they are called Utusamuttana, added from 4 generations, mother, father, and the food, mother, father, food by mother, and food we eat. Right? And these Rupas produce another generation. Second one, this is the first one, second one, both of them are called Utusamuttana. They are also called Utusamuttana. Then these Rupas, now the body also contains some other Rupas. It also contains Kamaj Rupas. It also contains Chittaja Rupas. After the food is consumed, they also contain Aharaja Rupas. And all these Rupas are affected by the Utu or the Tejo Dhatu of the outer environment, and also from the Tejo Dhatu inside as well, right? It's also affecting it, right? They are influencing, they are affecting. Now, hence, they are being affected by the Utu, internal and external Utu. All of them can be called Utupachya. All of them can be called Utupachya. That's what was explained. Yes. This includes the previously mentioned Utusamuttana Rupas also. So all of them are affected by Utu, so they can be called Utupachya. Rupas which arise from the Tejo Dhatu of the Utusamuttana Kalapas that are influenced by internal and external Utu are referred to as Utupachya Utusamuttana. Now focus on these two, they are Utusamuttana. The remaining are not Utusamuttana. When the third generation arises, I shall use another color, okay, pink. When the third generation arises from them, right, okay, here, okay, from them, these Rupas have arisen from Utusamuttana Rupas that also become Utupachya, right? If a Rupa arises from Utusamuttana, which is also Utupachya, due to being influenced by the Utu, this is called Utupachya Utusamuttana. Therefore, now this third generation can be called Utupachya Utusamuttana. Utupachya Utusamuttana. Right? The Utuja Rupas found in living bodies as described above include the Rupas of the first, second, third and all subsequent generations. These can be referred to as both Utuja Rupas and as Utusamuttana Rupas because all of them arise due to the Tejo Dhatu known as Utu. Whatever Utuja Rupas can be called Utu or Utusamuttana. Utuja Rupa or Utusamuttana. Since these Rupas are influenced by the external elements present in the body and in both external environment and within the body, they may since these rupas are influenced by the fire element present in both the external environment and within the body, they may also be referred to as the Uttupacchaya rupas. Moreover, as all of these rupas arise due to the Uttuja Kalapas that have themselves been affected by the fire element, they can also be referred to as Uttupacchaya Uttusamutta. I think it's understandable. All the Uttuja rupas in the end, starting from the first generation, can be called Uttuja rupas, Uttusamuttana, and Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. However, the Uttuja rupas that arise due to the fire element present in Kammaja, Chittaja, and Aharaja Kalapas should not be referred to by the designation Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. Now, these Tejo Dhatu in these Kalapas also produce Uttuja rupas. Even in these Kalapas, they should not be called. They can be called Uttusamuttana because they are arising from Tejo Dhatu, but they should not be called Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana because their origin is not a Uttusamuttana Rupa. Though these rupas, mother rupas, are Uttupacchaya due to being affected by Uttu, their offsprings, the daughter Kalapas, are not Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana rupas. Right? So, although all rupas in a living body are subjected to the influence of both internal and external fire elements and may therefore be described as Uttupacchaya rupas, the primary causes for the generation of those three rupas, types of kalapas, is not the fire element known as Uttu. Instead, they are either the Kamma, consciousness, or the nutrient element. Hence, the rupas in those kalapas cannot be classified as Uttusamuttana rupas. They are not Uttusamuttana rupas. Therefore, although the Uttuja rupas arising due to the fire element present in Kammaja, Chittaja, and Aharaja kalapas can be referred to as Uttuja rupas and Uttusamuttana rupas, they cannot be designated as Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. They can be called Uttuja rupa and Uttusamuttana because they have arisen from Tejo Dhatu. They cannot be called Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana because their mother Kalapa is not a Uttusamuttana. It's a Kammaja, Chittaja, or Aharaja Kalapa. However, since even those Uttuja rupas are influenced by both internal and external fire elements, they can still be referred to by the designation Uttupacchaya. They can be called Uttupacchaya as they are influenced by the Tejo Dhatu. So, only thing is all the rupas, now all the Uttuja rupas present in the body that are coming from the four major sources can be called Uttuja rupa, Uttusamuttana, and Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. Then Kammaja, Chittaja, Uttuja, Aharaja rupas can be called Uttupacchaya only. Then Uttuja rupas that are arising from them can be called Uttuja rupas, Uttusamuttana rupas, and Uttupacchaya rupas, but they cannot be called Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. That's what was mentioned here. The Uttuja kalapas that arise from the fire element present in Kammaja, Chittaja, and Aharaja kalapas are respectively referred to as Kammapacchaya Uttuja, Chittapacchaya Uttuja, and Aharapacchaya Uttuja kalapas. These kalapas, through their own fire element, produce further Uttuja kalapas. In turn, the fire elements in these newly generated kalapas also give rise to additional Uttuja rupas. So, means these kalapas can produce another Uttuja rupa, they can produce another Uttuja rupa. So, this lineage continues, right? All rupas in this subsequent lineage of production can be referred to as by the terms Uttuja, Uttusamuttana, Uttupacchaya, and Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. But these rupas in these lineages, because now what happens is this Uttuja rupas arising from Kammaja, Chittaja, and Aharaja are Uttusamuttana, and they are also influenced by external and internal Uttu. Therefore, their subsequent lineages, generations, offspring can be called Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana because they are arising from a Tejo Dhatu or a Uttusamuttana Rupa which is influenced by Uttu. So, from Uttupacchaya, they are arising from a Uttupacchaya Rupa at the same time which is a Uttusamuttana. So, they can be called Uttupacchaya Uttusamuttana. So, that's a complicated thing for some, maybe doesn't matter. So, these are just designations that we are discussing. All the Uttuja rupas found in living bodies as described above are referred to as Upadinaka rupas so long as they remain part of the living body. Now, for example, the saliva they have becomes a Upadinaka rupa before I spit it away. once they become separated from the living body, they are referred to as anupadinaka rupas. Even after death, the remaining Uttara Rupas in the body are classified as anupadinaka rupa. The dead body is an anupadinaka, upadinaka, anupadinaka, upadinaka, anupadinaka. Something that is considered as mind is upadinaka. Even that of a arahant doesn't need to be clinged by craving only. Anupadinaka is a non-living after it got separated from the body or after the body has died. Utu samagame utuja rupas. Under the influence of various environmental factors, new generations of utuja rupas arise in both animated and inanimate bodies. For example, if I go under the sun, or if I go into a cold weather condition, cold weather, or get exposed to an air condition, I get different feelings in my body. So due to these rupas from the outer environment, new rupas are arising within my body, and those lineages would not last long. The fire element, right? Element present in the environment that affects material bodies is referred to as utu. So this is another definition, another way of discussing utuja rupa. Now this is the body. And it's affected by outer word utu. Utu is tejo dhatu. They also remain in a kalapa actually. Tejo. And this tejo dhatu is called utu. Now due to this tejo dhatu, new rupas are arising within the body, the second generation. They are called utu samuttana, produced by this tejo, utu samuttana. Then these rupas are producing new utuja kalapas. They are called utupacchaya. Yes, shall we continue? Yes. Due to this utu, the first generation of utuja rupas that arise in both animate and inanimate bodies is termed as utupacchaya, utu samuttana. The rupas that arise due to the fire element present in these utu samuttana kalapas are referred as utupacchaya. That's a different term. Previously utupacchaya was the rupas that are influenced by utu. Now here utupacchaya means the second generation. This is the first I may say this is the first generation, second generation coming from this lineage, right? Then further, the rupas that arise due to the fire element in these utupacchaya kalapas are termed as utupacchaya utu samuttana. Now these utuja rupas also produce new kalapa. They are called utupacchaya utu samuttana. It's a different terminology, different from what we discussed previously. In the previous lesson, previously what we discussed, utupacchaya utu samuttana means rupa kalapas that are arising from a tejo dhatu in a utu samuttana, which is also utupacchaya. That means influenced by the utu. Now here, when a lineage is starting from the outer environment, in that lineage, the third generation is called utupacchaya utu samuttana. This is a definition mentioned, definitional method found in the Arthasalini, the commentary to the Dhamma Sangani. An explanation on utuja rupas in the inanimate world. Clouds are referred to as utu samuttana rupas, another definition. The rainwater that falls from the clouds is referred to as utupacchaya. The trees and vines that grow due to this rainwater, the fragrance that rise from the earth when rainwater falls, and the increased water levels in rivers, oceans and lakes, all of these are referred to as utupacchaya utu samuttana. This is another way of expression. So utu samuttana, utupacchaya and utupacchaya utu samuttana. So that would be the lesson. Yes, the main idea that we wanted to discuss today was our human body, utuja rupas in the human body are mainly constituted by four sources. Rupas coming into the body through four sources that are the body of the mother, parts coming from the body of the father, and then from the food the mother consumed while we were in her womb, and also the food that we consume as human beings. And then we also discuss how the rupa kalapas in a living body can be termed in terms of Uttuja Rupas, Uttu-Samutthana Rupas, Uttu-Pacchaya Rupas, and Uttu-Pacchaya Uttu-Samuttana. Yeah, I'll conclude the lecture, giving the opportunity for the question and Q&A session.
I'm really sorry if I troubled you last time. I went back and read the similar notes which were given during the 3 years ago, which I could not participate in those classes. And actually these definitions are a bit of a complicated affair. And today I think you cleared most of it. But anyway, my today's question is not about the Uttu-Pacchaya and Uttu-Samuttana, but it's about the Upadinaka and Anupadinaka. You said all the Rupas in a physical body, Kārya, is Upadinaka. And when the person is dead, it becomes Anupadinaka. But my question is, now there are certain body parts which we consider as lifeless in normal ordinary life. I mean, even the nails, hair, those can be cut and separated without any pain or any problem. So those are considered as lifeless parts. And in addition, now I am an example, there can be certain body parts can be replaced with artificially created parts like the heart valves or stents inside the arteries or even the pacemakers and ICDs which we are wearing or whatever. It performs part of the body from outside. Now such bodies, I was under the impression that those are not Upadinakas. And it's all probably fall into a Anupadina category because it is lifeless. Am I right or wrong? That's really what I want to find out.
Yes, when I said all body parts that we have to exclude the lifeless parts such as the nails growing outwards and also the hair, not the root but something that is coming out, because that's how the definition is given. And also the dry skin. So these are considered as Anupadinaka, even though they are part of our body. When we say the whole body, you have to exclude those parts. And regarding the parts that are implanted in our body, now for example, if you take the food that we consume, it is something that is outside, that is a Anupadinaka thing. For example, if you eat some vegetable, and then when that vegetable parts goes into our body, even at the undigested stage, they are still considered as Upadinaka. So the outer body parts that are drier, especially in the outer surface, they are not considered Upadinaka. Not the normal skin, the dry skin that can be removed, and also the nails that are coming out, and also the hair. Not the nails that are connected with not the root of the nail, not the root of the hair. They are Upadinaka because they contain Kamaja Rupas. Now, so therefore, the food that is undigested is considered as still as Upadinaka as long as it is in the body, and the stools that we pass, the excrement, is also considered Upadinaka when it is inside our body. So because they are, even though they don't contain Kamaja Rupas, but they are still part of our body. They are still a part of our body. Only the parts that are in the outer surface and does not contain Kamaja Rupas are considered Anupadinaka. So when, in my opinion, there is no specific exact direct statement on this, but when a part is connected to our body, in analogy with the undigested food, which is considered Upadinaka after it enters into our body, those iron rods and so forth can be considered Upadinaka if they become a part of your body, because in the final case, in the end, when we consume food, they are also coming from outside, and eventually they get mixed and become body parts. So all the flesh that we have is taken in. Earlier they were Anupadinaka, and then later they became Upadinaka. in the same way, but still one can still keep on arguing on this, that for example, if a nail is adapted into our body, does this become upadinaka after it's inserted? We can have both the opinions. One may say no, and one can still say yes based on the analogy on undigested food. And yeah, so normally those parts can also be considered as eye and mind, and it's applicable to hair as well. And so even, yeah, this is the definition. But for example, then when it comes to chittas and all these mentalities, they are always considered as upadinaka, even though they are the chittas which are not produced by karma, not vipaka chittas, can still be called, even the lokuttara chittas can be called upadinaka, because they are considered as a part of our life, Another very important thing is, now if I possess a robe that was bought given money, through money, by spending my own money, that robe is unallowable for, not only for me, but for all the monks. But when I take some food, consumed food, and after I have bought some food as a monk, which is not allowable for me to eat, even if I have eaten that, then those food becomes my body parts. So doesn't mean that those body parts are unallowable, or you have to remove them, because a robe I have to remove it, I have to give it to someone, I cannot use it anymore. But when I eat food that were bought spending money, my own money, which is unallowable, which is a thing that should be relinquished, and even that food particles changes into my body parts, I'm not having any issue carrying or bearing them. Therefore, in my opinion, for example, if a monk gets a implantation or uses a nail to fix his bone and it's inside the body, after it has been monk has spent his own money for that, and this becomes a nisagya object, unallowable object. But when it has gone into your body, in my opinion, you don't need to take it out for your purification of sila, because it becomes a part of your body afterwards. So in the same way, the food that we consume, having bought by our own money, with our own money, even though it turns into body parts, those body parts there's no issue in having them at all.
Thank you very much for explaining that complicated Vinay issue. But I have another small question that's about, you talked about conception. So when it's called zygote. Zygote is formed that is not really life until the rebirth consciousness gets associated with it. Patisandhiti or Chitta gets associated with it. And until that time, there's no Rūpa. So is that a correct way of taking it? Because some of the conceived zygotes may perish without becoming life. So at that stage, that what you explained is clear. Should we consider that Rūpa is the beginning of the life and the animate body?
Yes, according to Theravada standards, yes, only after after Rūpas have arisen. Otherwise, it's a part of the mother's body. It will be a upadinaka part of mother's body, but it becomes living as a living organism according to Theravada standards only after the Patisandhi Chitta has arisen on it. Rūpas have arisen.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I think that's all for questions, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it. And next week we are going to discuss some other important points, and also we in the due course we will be discussing about the how the world originates from the Uttu, especially from the Tejo Dhatu, and how the world cycles are happening as well. So hope to see you next week. May all of this merit help us to attain the final liberation as soon as possible. Buddha Sasanang Chirantittatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantittatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantittatu, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.